Something landed off the coast of California. Not at an airport, not on a runway. In the Pacific Ocean, 90 miles southwest of San Diego. And the U.S. Navy has footage of it.
We don't have this capability of dropping 80,000 feet within a matter of seconds, hitting a velocity of Mach 20. So we now know that there's some kind of propulsion system that exceeds the capability of our own rocket. These objects can zigzag effortlessly, defying the known laws of aerodynamics. These objects can effortlessly accelerate up to 20 times the speed of sound. They have no visible means of propulsion. So what could it be? Well, the short answer is we don't know.
In 2004, a Navy pilot got into a dogfight with an object that had no wings, no engine, and no exhaust. It mirrored his every move, then crossed the horizon in under a second. When he landed, men he'd never seen before took the evidence and told him it never happened. The Pentagon kept that footage locked away for over a decade. When it finally leaked, they had no choice but to release it. What's on that tape is something none of the Navy's best pilots could explain. But that's not even the craziest part of this story.
We are now witnessing a tipping point. You see, the burden of proof used to be on the believers to prove that UFOs are real. Now the burden of proof has shifted to the government and the military to prove that they're not real. But the evidence is overwhelming. We have all this information from U.S. Navy pilots. We now have metrics. We can actually measure how fast they travel, how high they are, what kinds of centrifugal forces that they can experience. And science, remember, is based on things that are testable, reproducible, and falsifiable. Now we have testable information. A game changer.
November 2004. 90 miles southwest of San Diego, the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group is running a routine 2-week training exercise in the Pacific. It's one of the most powerful naval formations on the planet. Fighter jets, warships, electronic warfare planes, all operating together in open ocean. Aboard the guided missile cruiser USS Princeton, Senior Chief Kevin Day is sitting in the Combat Information Center. Day has 18 years in the Navy. The captain has 28. Day's job is straightforward. Track and identify everything that flies in the sky around the carrier group. If a threat appears, he launches the missiles. If fighters go up, he guides them to the target and brings them home safe. And the Princeton has the tools to do it. The Spy-1 Bravo is one of the most advanced phased array radar systems ever deployed on a warship. Nothing is supposed to get past it. But over the past few days, something strange has been showing up. Groups of contacts, 5 to 10 at a time, keep appearing on the radar near San Clemente Island. They're at around 28,000 feet, barely moving, maybe 100 knots. No transponder signals, no flight plans, no communication. They don't match any known aircraft profile. He watches them for days. The formations appear, hold position, then vanish. Then they come back. Over 3 or 4 days, he counts somewhere between 50 and 60 individual tracks. At first, the radar technicians think the system is glitching. The SPY-1 had recently been upgraded, and anomalies after recalibration aren't unheard of. So they shut it down, run full diagnostics, recalibrate everything, and bring it back online. The contacts are still there, sharper and clearer than before. Day is getting the highest possible track quality on these objects. These aren't glitches. Whatever they are, they're real. And no one in the Combat Information Center can figure out what they are. Sunday, November 14th. The weather is perfect. Calm winds, clear skies, a near-ideal day for flying. The Nimitz deck crew is busy launching F/A-18F Super Hornets, helicopters, and E-2 Hawkeye surveillance planes for a simulated air defense exercise. Day is watching the radar when the unknown contacts appear again. And this time, for the first time, he has fighter jets in the air close enough to intercept. In the back of his mind, he's also concerned. The Navy is about to launch a whole bunch of aircraft into the same piece of sky where these unknown objects keep showing up. He briefs Captain Smith. They agree. It's time to get eyes on these things. Two FA-18F Super Hornets from the Black Aces Squadron, call sign Fast Eagle, are already airborne on a training run. The lead pilot is a commander with over a decade in the air wing. Mid-flight, they get pulled off their exercise and handed new orders. Real-world tasking. Proceed to specific coordinates and investigate an unknown contact. The tone on the radio shifts immediately. Then comes a question that catches everyone off guard. The tactical action officer aboard the Princeton gets on the radio and asks the pilots directly, "What's your weapons loadout?" Stunned pause. They're in a training environment. The jets are carrying dummy missiles that can't be fired. This isn't a drill. As Fast Eagle approaches the coordinates, their onboard radar can't pick up the target. Even the E-2 Hawkeye, orbiting overhead with its massive 24-foot radar dish, can't get a lock on the object. But the Princeton is still tracking it, feeding them bearing, range, and altitude updates in real time. The pilots see nothing in the sky. Then they look down. Below them, the ocean surface is churning. A large disturbance, roughly the size of a 737, is roiling the water as though something massive is just beneath the surface. And then they see it. A small white object, smooth, oblong, with no wings and no exhaust, is hovering just above the waves, darting erratically over the churning water. It looks like a tic-tac, porcelain white and completely featureless. It's not an airplane. It's nothing they recognize. The lead pilot descends to get a closer look. The moment he does, the object reacts. It begins rising to meet him, turning in sync with his jet, mirroring his movements as if it knows exactly what he's doing. He's now in a turning fight with the object at about his 3 o'clock position. He tries to get behind it, cutting across and diving to close the distance. For a few seconds, it's a dogfight. Except his opponent has no wings, no control surfaces, and no visible means of propulsion. The object is about the size of an F-18, roughly 47 feet long. Then the tic-tac accelerates. Not gradually, not with a visible thrust. It just goes. In a blink, it crosses to the horizon and disappears. No sonic boom, no exhaust trail, nothing. Back on the Princeton, Day watches the radar in disbelief. The object didn't just vanish. It reappeared 60 miles away, at the pilot's pre-designated rendezvous point. It got there before they could. The cap station coordinates were programmed into the mission plan. Somehow, the object knew exactly where to go. And it gets stranger. When the fighters launched from the Nimitz, every single one of those unknown contacts dropped from 28,000 feet to just above the ocean surface in less than a second. The SPY-1 radar clocked the descent at over 24,000 miles per hour. No sonic booms, no structural breakup, nothing that should be physically possible. Any conventional aircraft attempting that descent would have been torn apart. Any human inside would have been killed instantly by the G-forces alone. Up above, an E-2 Hawkeye surveillance plane from the Wallbangers Squadron had been listening to everything on the radio. One of the crew members, a radar operator we'll call Roger, since he hasn't come forward publicly, was sitting near a window when something caught his eye. A tic-tac object had formed up alongside their aircraft, holding position right off their wing. Then it shot away at impossible speed and vanished. The entire five-person crew saw it. Meanwhile, Kevin Day and Petty Officer Gary Voorhis climbed up to the Princeton's bridge wing and used the ship's high-powered binoculars to watch the remaining objects. They saw white lights moving in sharp, clean jumps, instant starts and stops. No gradual acceleration. The objects would sit still, then snap from one point to another, then stop dead. Below the surface, things were just as strange. Sonar technicians, communicating with a submarine in the strike group, reported tracking a fast-moving contact underwater. According to crew members, the object had gone from air to sea without slowing down, averaging roughly 500 knots beneath the waves. A later flight captured the object on the jet's advanced targeting forward-looking infrared pod. That footage, now famous around the world, shows a featureless, wingless craft with a uniform heat signature, no exhaust plume, and no visible means of propulsion. Crew members aboard the Princeton also saw the FLIR footage on their classified screens. Gary Voorhis described it as much clearer and longer than what was eventually released. He tried to make a copy, but by the time he came back with a disc, the video had already been wiped from the ship's network. Petty Officer Jason Turner, aboard the Nimitz, described seeing a version of the video roughly 10 minutes long, far longer than the clip the public would eventually see. He said the object was making turns that would be impossible for anything with a human pilot inside. The jets would try to follow it, and it would just vanish, then reappear, then vanish again. He described appendages or protrusions at the bottom of the object that were visible in the higher resolution footage, but not in the degraded version that was later released. What happened next is what haunts these sailors to this day. Shortly after the encounters, unidentified officials arrived aboard both the Nimitz and the Princeton. No one on either ship recognized them. No one saw them arrive. On the Nimitz, aviation tech Patrick Hughes was securing the EE classified hard drives from the Hawkeye when his commanding officer showed up at the door with two men in flight suits. Hughes believes they were Air Force based on their insignia, but they hadn't been on the ship earlier that day. He has no idea how they got aboard. They took the hard drives and left on a helicopter. On the Princeton, Gary Voorhis was ordered to hand over all his data recording tapes, erase every blank tape in the shop, and reload the ship's cooperative engagement capability system because it had been wiped. The men who collected the tapes were in plain clothes. They arrived by helicopter and left the same way. On the Hawkeye, the crew that had seen the tic-tac were escorted to a secure space on the ship. A Navy officer told them flatly, this event did not happen. They were given non-disclosure agreements and warned never to discuss it. For over 13 years, they didn't. The Nimitz encounter stayed buried until 2017, when the cockpit FLIR footage was leaked. Then, in April 2020, the Pentagon officially declassified 3 Navy UFO videos, including the tic-tac footage from the California coast. The Department of Defense confirmed these were authentic recordings of unidentified aerial phenomena. Not hoaxes, not sensor errors. Real objects that the United States military could not identify. It was the first time in history that the U.S. government had officially acknowledged and released footage of UFOs. But for the sailors who were there, the declassification was bittersweet. The footage the public saw was only a fraction of what was recorded. The longer, higher-resolution video that multiple crew members described has never been released. The radar data, the sonar contacts, the hard drives, all of it was taken and never returned. And the Nimitz case was far from the only one. In 2015, fighter jets from the USS Roosevelt filmed similar objects during training exercises off the East Coast. The pilots reported entire fleets of unidentified craft operating in restricted military airspace day after day, for months. One of the videos from that encounter shows pilots reacting in real time as they track a fast-moving object, struggling to understand what they're looking at. Something was clearly going on, and the government clearly knew more than it was saying. Which brings us to what might be the most extraordinary claim yet. Investigative journalist Ross Coulthart, the same reporter who conducted the landmark interview with intelligence whistleblower David Grush, has stated publicly that the United States possesses a recovered craft so massive that it could not be moved from where it was found. Instead, authorities built a structure around it in the foreign country where it sat. Coulthart hasn't named the country, but the claim sent researchers tearing through satellite imagery, and their search led to a mountain south of Seoul, South Korea. On top of that mountain sits a perfectly circular structure, roughly 270 feet in diameter. Officially, it belongs to the Korea Airports Corporation and serves as an aeronautical communications facility. On paper, it's unremarkable. But look closer, and things start to not add up. Armed guards patrol the perimeter. That level of security is unusual for a civilian aviation hub. The building itself is enormous, far larger than any conventional radar or communications installation would need to be. And the man currently running the Korea Airports Corporation previously served as the first deputy director of South Korea's National Intelligence Service, the country's equivalent of the CIA. An intelligence chief overseeing an airport communications building. That's the kind of detail that makes researchers pay attention. Then there's the document. Researchers have cited a declassified report referencing an incident near Seoul in the 1970s, in which an unidentified craft was reportedly brought down in a mountainous area. According to the report, it took 3 years to construct a surrounding structure to fully conceal it. If true, that building has been sitting there for over 50 years, hiding in plain sight. Whistleblowers who claim knowledge of classified aerospace programs say the story checks out. One, speaking anonymously, stated that the object's size made removal impossible. Excavating it from the mountain would have meant dismantling it, and dismantling it would have destroyed whatever secrets it held. So they did the only thing that made sense. They built over it, staffed it with a cover operation, and let the world forget it was there. And here's the part that makes the cover story almost too perfect. In the 1970s, nobody could have predicted Google Earth. Nobody imagined that one day anyone with a laptop could pull up high-resolution satellite images of any mountaintop on the planet. Back then, building a massive dome over the object would have seemed foolproof. Today, it's the very thing drawing attention. The facility remains active, and its true purpose is known only to a handful of people with the highest possible clearances. Meanwhile, another mystery surfaced closer to home. In early 2025, someone exploring the remote Sierra Ladrones mountains of New Mexico on Google Earth spotted something that didn't belong. A white disc-shaped object about 30 feet across, partially embedded in the desert floor. No roads leading to it. No buildings anywhere nearby. A visible trail of disturbed earth led to the object's resting position, as though it had impacted the ground at speed and skidded to a stop. The screenshots went viral. Within hours, UFO communities were analyzing the images, trying to triangulate exact coordinates and debating what the object could be. Some speculated it was a crashed craft hidden in one of the most remote stretches of desert in the country. Others thought it might be a military project gone wrong, accidentally, captured by satellite. Then, less than a day later, the disk vanished from Google Earth. Users who returned to the coordinates found nothing. Just an undisturbed patch of desert. as if the object had never been there. No official explanation was given. No statement from Google. No comment from any government agency. The object goes viral one day, and the next day it no longer exists on the map. Some researchers have suggested the object may have been a rainwater catchment system, the kind used in desert environments, and that the imagery change was a routine satellite data update. That's possible. But what those explanations don't account for is the timing. Dozens of mundane structures sit in Google Earth imagery for years without being touched. This one disappeared within hours of attracting public attention. New Mexico has a long history with unidentified objects. The state is home to the most famous UFO incident in history. The idea that another unexplained object could be found in its deserts and then scrubbed from view almost immediately fits a pattern that is getting harder to dismiss as coincidence. So why does the government keep so much hidden? The most straightforward answer is national security. The technologies used to detect and track these objects, advanced radar systems, infrared sensors, sonar arrays, are themselves classified capabilities. Revealing exactly what the military saw during the Nimitz encounter could inadvertently expose how those systems work, handing foreign adversaries a blueprint. But there's a deeper problem that officials rarely say out loud. If these objects represent technology that isn't ours and isn't from any known country, then admitting that means admitting something is operating in American airspace that the U.S. military can't stop, can't reliably track, and doesn't understand. For the most powerful military on Earth, that's not just embarrassing. It's terrifying. Consider what the Nimitz data actually showed. An object that dropped from 28,000 feet to sea level in under a second. That's a descent speed of over 24,000 miles per hour. For comparison, the fastest manned aircraft ever built, the SR-71 Blackbird, tops out around 2,200 miles per hour. The object the Princeton tracked was moving more than 10 times that speed. And it did it without making a sound. If you're a government official, how do you explain that to the public? And if you've been hiding it for 20 years, how do you explain why you waited so long? That's the real trap of secrecy. The longer it continues, the worse the eventual disclosure becomes. Every year that passes without transparency feeds the conspiracy theories that fill the vacuum. Bipartisan efforts in Congress to declassify UAP-related materials suggest that at least some lawmakers understand this. And the witnesses themselves, people like Kevin Day, Gary Voorhis, Patrick Hughes, and Jason Turner, are living proof that the truth doesn't stay buried forever. They kept quiet for over a decade. Then they decided the public deserved to know. But for now, the pattern holds. Evidence surfaces. It disappears. Witnesses come forward. They're told to stay quiet. And the questions keep piling up. The hard drives were taken. The tapes were erased. The crew was told it never happened. And for 13 years, they stayed quiet. But they're not quiet anymore. The footage the Pentagon released is real. The witnesses are real. And what's been made public is only a fraction of what was recorded that day. The rest is still out there, locked away, waiting. How many more secrets do you think they're keeping? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.